Hi guys, my name is Amber and welcome back to my channel, Amber Eats Books. I am so excited to do the mid-year book freakout tag today. This is a tag that kind of just goes around BookTube at this time of the year. I don't know if anyone actually tags other people to do it. I feel like it's just one of those things that everyone does just because they do it every single year. I did it last year. I really enjoyed it. It's really helpful for me to go back and watch this later on at the end of the year so I can make my best of 2018 list. So I just want to go ahead and share my thoughts with you. I will leave the link to the original tag down below so you guys can go ahead and check that out. The first question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2018? Now, for me to pick just one book, that's like impossible. So I'm going to pick a couple of books. The best audiobook I feel like I've listened to this year was My Lady Jane. It's by multiple authors, so I will leave a picture here. I feel like this was the best performed book that I've ever listened to. It was one narrator. She did a fantastic job becoming all of these different characters in the book because it's told from 3 different points of view. I just think it was so much fun. I had a blast listening to it. It's like one of the only audiobooks that I've ever considered actually buying and owning because I want to re-listen to it at some point. I just loved it. So that is definitely the best audiobook I've listened to. One of the best books that I've read this year, I have so many bests, but I had to narrow it down. And one that I keep returning to over and over again when I'm thinking about the best things that I've read during the year was Wolf Winter by Cecilia Eckbach. This is the story of a family who is surviving in these really cold, frigid temperatures out in the mountains. And it's just a story that I remember reading during the winter while it was snowing, and it just has like sunk down into my soul. I just think about this book all the time, and now when I think of winter, I think of this book. The writing was fantastic. It was atmospheric. The characters were complex and flawed, and the story was just one where it kept me like really engaged. It's definitely more character driven than plot driven. So if you're one of those readers who need more things to happen in the plot, I wouldn't suggest this for you, but if you're definitely more into the characters and what's behind their thoughts and what's going on in their heads, then this is definitely the kind of book for you. In that same vein, as far as character sort of driven plots, I also loved Beartown by Frederick Bachman. This book just blew me away when I first read it. I did a buddy read of this with my friend Gwen, and we both couldn't believe how much we loved it. We flew through this book. It was so fast, and it's not a small book. I mean, it's a decent sized book, and we just flew through it. Again, there is action, there are things that go on, but this is definitely more a book about characters and their motives and how everyone's just imperfect and how small things can make a big impact either in a positive way or a negative way. And I just loved this book, and it definitely cemented Frederick Bachman as like one of my favorite authors of all time. So I definitely recommend this book. It has so many characters in it, and it jumps back and forth between those characters, but it doesn't feel like overwhelming. It feels like you're seamlessly flowing through these characters, and because it does all this jumping, I was never bored throughout it. Even though there wasn't a ton of action happening all of the time, it definitely felt that way because you're constantly going through each character's life, and you don't feel like you're just stuck stagnant in one point of view all of the time. So I definitely recommend this book. One of my favorites of the year so far, hands down. Question number 2. What is best sequel you've read so far in 2018? Again, I have a couple of answers for this just because this is how it's probably going to go. The first one I definitely have to mention is Us Against You by Frederick Bachman, which is the sequel to Beartown. I just finished reading this yesterday. I actually had other answers written down for the tag, but I didn't get to the filming of the tag before I read this book. This one definitely is one of my favorite sequels of all time. It was just as good as the first book. I enjoyed it. It carried on the same important themes and things from that book, and you seamlessly flow back into these characters' lives and see where it takes you. I don't know if there will ever be a third book or another book set in this town or in this series, but I would definitely be excited if there was, because I definitely want to continue on to see kind of what happened to some of these characters and maybe meet some new characters along the way. But this is definitely one of the best sequels I've read all year. Another sequel that I really loved and enjoyed was The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, and that's book 2 in the Winter Night trilogy. This book was, again, just as good as the first book. even though it took place in a different part of the world, had a different bit of a setting with a few different characters, even though the main character, Vasilisa, was still there, it kind of, you know, just showed you different areas, and I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and I cannot wait for book 3 when that comes out, I think in January. Question number 3, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to? Us Against You was on that list. However, like I said, I actually didn't get to filming the tag right away. So now my other answer is The Outsider by Stephen King. I've heard many people read this and really enjoy it. I still have not read Sleeping Beauties, which was the last book that him and his son came out with prior to this one, which didn't get quite as good reviews as this one's getting. This one, everyone that's been reading it has been saying how much they really, really enjoyed it. So I'm ready to get back to a Stephen King book. I haven't read one in quite a few months, and you know that he has been my all-time favorite author since I was like a teenager. So I definitely always want to gravitate back to his works and to see if I can find something new to love from his writing. So I am excited to get to it. I hope to get to it probably by October. I'm not going to put a time, like a pressure on myself to get to it, but I definitely want to get to it maybe around, you know, Halloween season, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get to it before then, because maybe I just won't be able to stand the hype anymore. Number 4, what is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year? I don't really follow new releases too often. The only book that I kind of have on my radar at the moment is another book by Stephen King. It's called Elevation. So that one I'm definitely looking forward to, but I don't think I have too many new releases that are actually coming out this year that I'm looking forward to. I have a few coming out at the beginning of 2019 that I can't wait for. So I don't really have too many answers. I only have one answer for this one, so I don't have multiple answers, but that's definitely what I'm looking forward to. All right, now we're getting into question number 5, the biggest disappointment of the year. And I have to say that's going to go to The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. I looked forward to reading this book for almost a year and a half, I want to say, before I actually got my hands on it. I won this through a Goodreads giveaway. I was so excited because I had been anticipating it for so long. When I actually got into the story though, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was a lot slower. It took a lot longer getting to the point of certain things. I thought the writing was just a little choppy in places. It didn't flow quite as well as I wanted it to. It could have been my mood at the time while I was reading it, but I just felt like disappointed so much when I finished reading it, because I was like, oh, I wanted it to be like a 5-star read, and it was a 3-star read, which is still good. I still did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. There was parts of it that I still really enjoyed. There were certain sections I really enjoyed, but as a whole, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Question number 6, what is the biggest surprise of the year? So far, I would have to say that goes to All the Birds Singing by E.V. Wild. I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was just one of those times where I just went on my library's website, I picked out an audiobook, I didn't know if I was going to like it or not, and even when I started it, I was kind of hesitant about it. It just wasn't coming together for me. I was like, it seems to be jumping around. It feels a little choppy. But then, probably about a quarter of the way through the book, I started to understand what was happening and how we were jumping back and forth in time and following her 2 different storylines from her past and her present. Once I got the hang of that, this book just totally blew my mind, and I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to check out something else by her because it was fantastic. Question number 7, favorite new author, debut, or new to you? I heard, I think it was Connor from Connor O'Brien, say that he doesn't consider an author a favorite author until he has read multiple books by this author. And I have to agree. I can love one book by an author, but really dislike another book by an author. And until I've read multiple books by them, I don't really feel like I can say, yes, that person is a new favorite. I have one exception this year, and that is Catherine Arden. I've read 2 books by her, but they're both from the same series. I read A Bear and the Nightingale, and The Girl in the Tower. They were both fantastic. I loved both of them. I can't foresee myself not liking other things that she does. So I'm calling her one of my new favorite authors. I will also say Frederick Bachman, even though I really enjoyed him last year, and I was saying he was one of my new favorite authors, he has definitely been cemented as an all-time favorite author, if that makes any sense to anybody. So those are my answers. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. I would have to go with, I don't get fictional crushes too much. Normally it's like if I'm reading like a book that has a romance, you know, plot throughout it. I'm not big on huge romance stories. I've read a few here and there that I've enjoyed, but usually it's more like a book that the romance is sort of secondary. This book, the romance was the main thing, and I loved every second of it, and that was the Selection series by Kira Cass. I loved all 3 of those books, and I fell in love with Prince Maxim. I love Prince Maxim so much. The way he just handled things and treated people, it was really good. I mean, there was a few spots where I was kind of like, why is he doing that? But it kind of came full circle at the end, and I could end up really enjoying his character. That's really the only one that I could say that I had like even sort of a crush on, because like I don't really get fictional crushes too much. I like fall in love with characters and just want to like love them and protect them, but I don't really usually like pine after characters. He's the only one that I kind of had like a little like, oh, if he was only real sort of thing. But that probably goes back to me loving princes and princesses when I was little. So I was a big Disney person. So definitely hit on my childhood a little bit just with that theme running through it. Question number 9, newest favorite character. So I have to say, I have a couple. Of course, why wouldn't I? That's the theme of this video. One of them being Vasilisa from The Girl in the Tower, or A Baron and Nightingale. She's just so strong and determined and doesn't really take crap from people, and I just love her character. You kind of don't know what she's going to do next, and I love that about her. I also really fell in love with in Beartown, the character Amat. I thought just following his story was so fascinating to me, and Frederick Bachman really has well-rounded yet flawed characters. Also from Us Against You, the book I just finished by Frederick Bachman, I really fell in love with Benji in this book. My heart just went out to him so many times, and those are just characters that will like stick with me. They felt like real live flesh people when I read them, so I just absolutely love those 3 characters. Question number 10, books that made you cry. Okay, well, this book has been in here a couple times already, but Us Against You made me cry a couple of times while I was reading it, as did Beartown. Another book that really made me cry was Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. I just kept crying and crying and crying and crying through that book, because it doesn't take a lot to make me cry in books. It takes much more to make me laugh, but I cry so much because I become so attached to these characters, and I just feel for them so badly. So yeah, definitely cried through those few books. A book that made you happy. There's one book that hands down made me happier than any other book this year, and that was Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This middle grade book was just so good. It made me so happy because I know a lot of people have said it, but it made me feel like how I felt when I was reading Harry Potter for the first time. It just made me feel happy, and the characters in this book are so good, and the way the story was going was so fantastic, and it left it sort of like I just wanted the next book right away. Like, that's how it made me feel. Every time I look at this book, I kind of smile a little, and every time someone mentions it in a video, I smile. So this book definitely made me happy, and I cannot wait to read the next book in the series. I can't wait to get back into Nevermore. Question 12, most beautiful book you bought so far this year. So definitely one of those I have to say is Us Against You. I love the cover, like the colors of this book. I love the print type. I love the picture of the town right here. I just love everything about the look of this book. But there is another set of books that I love as well. The first one is Flame in the Mist. These are by Renee Ahdieh. I love the blue and the pink together. Blue and pink are my favorite colors just in general, and these shades are some of my favorite colors in general. So that just made me really happy seeing this book. Every time I look at it, I just am like, oh, I love that color, I love that color, I love that color. Then I bought the sequel, Smoke in the Sun, and I just think this one is just as beautiful as the first one, and when they sit side by side on my shelf, I just love looking at them. I just love pretty books in general. And then 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, quite frankly, I don't have to read any books by the end of the year, but in my mind, I have to get to all the books by the end of the year. I don't have any specific ones picked out. A few of the ones that I mentioned here, such as The Outsider, I want to get to hopefully by the end of the year, but it's not something that I really feel like I have to make a huge priority list of books that I have to read by the end of 2018. So I don't have too many for that. Anyway, those are all the books that I have to share with you. I hope that you guys found some new books while listening to me. And if not, if you've read any of these books, let me know so we can have a little chat about them down in the comments below. I hope you have a great week and happy reading.